We are on 2:1:12. We have seen uh, 2:1:12, the 12th verse, which was extensively dealt with in the last class. We also spoke there about the dimensions of the Atman. This Atman, this reality is within. And the dimensions were given at the size of a thumb. We had taken the first line of the verse. The being, that Purusha, of the size of a thumb resides in the body. Here it is. This is the reality within. This is the Atman that resides within. We will see in a couple of verses why it appears as the size of a thumb. First is it is delimited by the space in the core of your being, the space of consciousness, Chidakash, or the space of the mind or the inner instrument, which is the totality of the mind stuff, the ego, the intellect, and the mind. In that core of the being, there is, like in the form of a lotus, and within that lotus, there is that space, and within that space is that Atman, the Purusha, the reality found there inside. Now, the space, because of that space, which is as the size of a thumb, that's the reason why the reality appears as it were the size of a thumb. This size, one's own thumb. This also verse also indicates a location for meditation. We have to meditate. You don't meditate on anything or anywhere you like. Many people have this difficulty. After years and years of meditation, they don't seem to be getting anywhere. Why is that? We must be able to first pin down a location for the object of meditation. And after pinning down the location, then the reality as it appears within the object of meditation should be clearly perceived there inside as the object of meditation. So you have the Purusha, the Atman within the body, the size of a thumb. And the next verse is the second line of the verse, sorry. Knowing that as the ruler of the past and present, one does not, by virtue of that knowledge, to save the self, does not want to save that self. Let me repeat it again. Knowing that reality as the ruler of the past and the future, one does not want, by virtue of that knowledge, to save the self. This indeed is that. This indeed is that. This indeed is the reality that was asked by Nachiketa to his teacher, Yama, the god of death. Why is that Atman there, the reality that's within, it has to be meditated upon as the ruler of the past as well as the future. Ishano Bhuta Bhavyasya. So, though it appears as a size of a thumb due to the limitations imposed on it by the inner instrument, it is the ruler of the past as well as the future. And it also means the ruler of the present. It also means that it transcends time. The moment you say it transcends time, it also means it transcends space. It is, in a way, dimensionless. Time and space and causation bring in a kind of a dimension to this world. That this Atman, in its unconditioned form, is dimensionless. So the first, in its conditioned form, conditioned by the inner instrument, the mind, it is the size of a thumb. And immediately the next line speaks of it as beyond all conditions, beyond time and space and causation, beyond the world. It is, that means it's infinite. So we have to meditate on the reality within as infinite. Will meditating like this bring us to this realization? Yes. As you think, so will you become. As you will think, so will you be. Swami Vivekananda has quoted this, which was said by the Buddha. So the mind takes the form, as it were, of infinity. It is only then can you realize your Atman as the infinite. People get a little unsettled. Isn't my self, the Atman, the reality within my body and being immortal, and which is going to live forever and ever and ever? As long as your Atman has a form, it is conditioned by name and form. The elements of time and space and causation come and impinge on it. What gives anything its conditioning? Name and form and causation. Time, space, causation, cause the law of causation. One thing gives rise to another. So the next verse here, the next line of the verse says that Ishano Bhuta Bhavyasya. This Atman is the Lord of the future as well as the past and the future. It's very important because it transcends time. It is dimensionless. And the real nature of this reality which is within is dimensionless, beyond time and beyond space, beyond causation, beyond even the bodies. In its conditioned aspect, it, as it were, appears within the body. And this helps us in order to realize its nature. After this verse, the translation is does not want to save the self because of that knowledge. What is to save the self because of that knowledge? See, what happens is the moment you have realized this infinite dimension of the universe, of the reality, this self that is dimensionless, it pervades everything, then what happens is, the commentator says, you attain to the state of fearlessness. Abhayam vai praptosi janaka. You have attained to that state of fearlessness. That state of fearlessness is the state of attaining that non-dual reality. Because the moment you see there is duality, as it were, as the other Upanishad also says, you fear comes in. When there is only that self, the Atman, what is there to fear? All fears of death and uncertainty and all these things go away. And this realization comes saying, Tato navijugupsate, does not want to kind of say. See, what happens is we are always trying to save ourselves through selfishness. We want to save our thoughts and try to hold on to it. Why? Because if one thought is kind of comfortable with me, I feel this is a kind of my protective cushion. This is my bolster. This is something that kind of I can depend on. So people, they take comfortable thoughts and words and actions, even imaginations and fantasies. Somehow we are trying to always protect this self, this reality. The self, the reality does not need your protection. You want to always save yourself from embarrassment, save yourself from danger, save yourself from criticism, save yourself from so many things in the world. And we are always becoming so aware of, this self has to be protected. Atmanam satatam rakshet. Protect yourself always. And as a result, what happens? This extends to the idea that the self here is this body, and we are trying to protect this body and protect this mind and protect this intellect. These are my ideas, these are my thoughts, and this is my feeling, this is my space. We're trying to push people away from, we don't want anything to invade our space, our thoughts, our lives. They will say, yes, you are the life of my life. Oh, you're my life, I love you. And then after a while something happens, and that was a kind of an attack on me, and I don't want to be mowed down now anymore. So the person who realizes this self within, the reality within, which is like appears as the size of a thumb, which is in its unconditioned aspect, the Lord, the ruler of the past, the present, and the future, this person becomes fearless, because this person has transcended every limitations that Maya could have brought to it. This is the idea of Ishano Bhuta Bhavyasya Tato Navijugupsate. The next verse, 2, 1, 13, is using that same first word which was used in the 12th verse. The Purusha, who is of the size of a thumb, is like a light without smoke. That is the ruler of the past and the future, that exists today and that will exist tomorrow. This indeed is that. So there's a further elaboration that reality is light without any shadow. Ordinarily, we have always a flame, and you have the flame that's burning, and you always have combustion, and that combustion brings out that smoke. We always associate light or fire with smoke. In bringing in this illustration of the size of a thumb and like light without any smoke, is telling us that this light is a transcendent light, and the illustration is only partially correct in the sense of this light is without smoke. It's saying Angushta Matra Purusha Jyotireva Dhumaka Ishano Bhuta Bhavyasa Sa Evadya Sa Usva Etadvaitad. That reality, the Purusha. Why is called Purusha? Because the commentator, he explains it, that which fills everything, Purusha, Purnamiti Anena, which fills everything. That Purusha which appears in the body, in the core of your being, in the heart, as the size of your thumb, is like a light without smoke. It's a divine light. It's not a material light. And that is the ruler of the past and the future. We have explained this because it transcends time. And that exists, he exists today and he will exist tomorrow. Today and today. One of the doubts that Nachiketa had voiced to Yama, the god of death, was there is a doubt. Some people say that when a person dies, that person exists. One person say that person does not exist. Yam prete vichikitsa manushye asti iti nayam asti. So that doubt has been dispelled by the god of death. Whether it exists, some say it exists, some say it doesn't exist. No, it exists. It always existed. It existed yesterday, it exists today, and it will exist tomorrow. It's always existent, the Atman. In the Buddhist literature, you find one doctrine of momentariness, that the consciousness is momentary. It flickers. It's called Shanika Vijnanavad. The consciousness flickers. A constant flickering gives us this idea of continuity. And this idea of continuity brings in the idea of a self. Actually, it's not so. That's what the Buddhist doctrine says. The commentator here is very clear. He's saying this also demolishes the doctrine of momentariness, of kind of flickering consciousness. It was always there, it was constant. That light was there yesterday, it is today, and it will be there tomorrow. There is no question of flickering. Something is going on and off and on and off, but it appears as if it's a continuous stream. No. So these two old doctrines have been discarded. Once again, the Upanishad talks this Purusha, the reality within, at the size of a thumb. In India, we have, in most of Asia, of course, or India, and most of the world also, we have these long bamboo trees. It's a long stem. And it's hollow inside. It's really not fully hollow. There's kind of ridges interspersed in that long stem. It gives that kind of tensile strength, as it were. So in India, if you cut the bamboo, you'll find it's kind of a hollow there. So in the body, you will find, as it were, you can dive deep and deep and deep and deeper inside. Then you come, as we have in the last class we had mentioned, in that space in the core of your heart, which is like the size of a thumb in the shape of a lotus, and within that is that space. Like the bamboo, externally it might appear solid, but when you cut it, it's hollow. So that lotus there, that supreme, that encloses that supreme space, that's hollow there inside. There's a space inside, and within that space is this. It appears like this because of that space. Like this space here in this room appears, as it were, delimited by the walls and the ceiling and the floor. Space itself cannot be limited. It is unlimited. So we'll say, oh, this is my space. That is, oh, this is my space. There's nothing as your space and my space and his space and her space. No. But we put these kind of designation over this. Space is space. So that one reality, the infinite, dimensionless, luminous reality, appears in that space within your heart. And you say, it is the size of a thumb. I think this is clear. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So now we need to meditate on that reality. The size of a thumb, it is luminous. There's no smoke. It's kind of luminous. That is, there's no kind of other dualities there. And you need to meditate as your own self. The next verse will explain why we think that we have individual selves. There's only one self. And in Advaita Vedanta, the final doctrine is the individual self is nothing but the supreme self. Until that is realized, we will keep on circuiting this universe. But when your individual self has been realized as the supreme self, then comes realization. Supreme realization. The next two verses will take this up, explain how the one self appears as many, and how the sage, the one who has been meditating, how he will merge his or her individual self into the supreme self. But here he says, that is the ruler of the past and the future. That Lord, he is the ruler of the past and the future. This has been explained before. He exists today and he will exist tomorrow. Exist where? Exist everywhere. Everything is nothing but that Atman, that reality. It is appearing outside. It does not appear so clearly inside. But there is a feeling, yes, I am. It is reflected in the sense of I am. That self. And that self, as it were, is covered. So as you keep on plunging inside, you will find that same self as not only inside you, but inside all beings, all bodies, and all living organisms, and you will see it existing also outside. That's why he's saying that exists today, he exists today, and he will exist tomorrow. This indeed is that. This indeed is the reality that was asked by Nachiketa to Yama. I want to know this Atma. Anyatra dharma, anyatra adharma, anyatra bhutatya bhavyatya. Anyatra kritat krityasya yattat pashyati. It is different from vice, different from virtue, different from the past, different from the present, different from everything. Tell me of that, what you have realized. So Nachiketa had asked for this reality, and the Upanishad is now explaining it. This is the reality that you've been asking. This indeed is that. And constantly, this indeed is that. This is what you had asked. You wanted to know the reality, whether it exists, whether it does not exist. It does exist. Say, so the commentator says, very kind of, the yogis realize this Purusha, this reality in their hearts. So he says that which is perceived as such by the yogis in the hearts. So this is a realization. Long, long ago, I had overheard, rather not overheard, I was kind of, we were discussing with a few of the elder monks. And one of the monks was telling me, no, there is, you're speaking about another monk. One day he was deep in meditation. And as he was meditating, he used to live separated from others in the same compound, in the same premises, but in a kind of separate location. And he was meditating, and then what happened was 3 or 4 days later on, he is not to be seen. He used to come once a day to the main monastery. And then, so another monk goes to see what's up. Probably he's meditating, yeah, but meditation has become so deep, he hasn't eaten for 3 days, something like that. He was wondering. So this monk goes and tries to push the door open. It was locked. He knocked on it several times. There's no answer from inside. There's no sound also. So he breaks open the door and he finds that meditating monk sprawled on the floor. And he was, my God, he must have had a stroke. He must have a heart attack or something like that. And he was trying to revive him. They called the doctors, etc. Then the rest of the monks all came in. So this monk, he was slowly revived, saying, I'm fine. You don't have to call anyone. Don't make a big noise out of it. I'm fine. And then he was given some kind of hot, nourishing drink that he drank. And then later on, you're saying what the Upanishads had said, Angushta Matra Purusha, Jyotiriva Dhumaka, the Purusha, the size of a thumb, just luminous and without its concomitant smoke. I have realized that.
When you realize that, do you fall conscious?
That is the strength of that experience. That experience was so overwhelming. That person, his consciousness had plunged within the core of his being, the heart, and the body. That's why appears as it were lifeless. So when your consciousness plunges deep within, your mind also plunges, and your life force also, prana, also plunges inside. When you go to sleep, what happens? You dream. Are you aware of your body? No. Your mind and everything has plunged inside. And when you really are oblivious of everything, people might say, oh, he has fallen down, he has fallen asleep, he has got a stroke. No, he's just asleep. So, in the states of very deep meditation, and this is the realization that he has, you see, at one point of time, also, this is another incident where Swami Adbhutananda, Latu Maharaj, was in Balram Bose's house in Calcutta. That's where he used to live towards the end of his stay in Calcutta. So there was a Pandit, a teacher, he was teaching the Upanishad. And this was the Katha Upanishad that he was teaching. And he's explaining the Purusha, the size of a thumb. And of course, the exact verse comes in the next section. It has to be slowly extracted from within, like you would extract the pith of a tall stalk of grass, and it's called a munja grass, and there's a pith inside. And to extract that pith, one has to be extremely careful. Otherwise, that pith might, it's stringy, it might snap. So one has to carefully extract this Atman, as it were, in the midst of the other elements of the mind and the body and the senses and the vital force and all these things. So that, and Adbhutananda Swami, Adbhutananda Latu Maharaj was so delighted. The Pandit has spoken rightly. He is keeping on. And there was at that time Swami Shuddhananda, Sudhir, who later also became one of the presidents of the order. He was Swami Vivekananda's disciple. So his pre-monastic name was Sudhir. So Latu Maharaj is saying, Sudhir, that Pandit, he spoke correctly. And they retired for the night. And throughout the night, Latu Maharaj is coming over and over. Sudhir, that Pandit said rightly. Whole night, he kept on saying, Sudhir, that Pandit spoke the truth. He was so elated because his experience tallied with that of the Upanishads. This is very important. In telling you this, I want to mention it that our realizations tally with what is in the Upanishad. Actually, the Upanishads are the records of experiences of the sages. It is not a mere philosophy. In Indian, you can say system, it's called darshana, to see. These are the experiences. It's not from an intellectual standpoint. You read 20 books and you write an article, and there I've read, it is a nice article. But you've just taken the information from 20 things. What belongs to you? What's yours? No, this person has said that person has said that. These are the first hand experiences of this. And these experiences will be replicated, should be replicated by us all. At that point of time, you will see that reality, luminous, conditioned as it were, and appearing as the size of a thumb. That is that supreme soul which is appearing as an individual soul. Let me repeat this again. It is that very supreme soul that is appearing as an individual soul. Because Advaita Vedanta, the doctrine of Advaita Vedanta, does not posit two souls. There is one soul. Now, for us who meditate on Shri Ram Krishna, what about us? Yes, you can visualize Shri Ram Krishna, this at the size of a thumb, luminous, sitting within the cave of the heart or the lotus of the heart there. You can meditate on that. And as we meditate on this, because the moment you say the size of a thumb, it has brought name and form. You replace that with a luminous Ramakrishna, the name Ramakrishna, the form Ramakrishna. And you meditate on it. And then you will find, as you meditate on Sri Ramakrishna there, within the deep recesses of your heart, you will find that Ramakrishna, which is luminous, melting away into that higher form of Ramakrishna, which is beyond time, which is beyond space, which is beyond causation. The formed will merge into the formless. It's like you throw a hailstone or nothing but ice cube in the ocean. What happens? What happens? Well, it will melt away. It will come. So these forms, the size of a thumb or the form of name and form of Ramakrishna, will melt away. It is from that water that ice has appeared, and it will go back to that place. So similarly, we as individuals, we have emerged from that supreme self, and we will go back into that supreme self. That is the reality. This is what we will understand at that point of realization. So the first experience is that reality within, with a particular dimension, with this particular quality, luminous, and it is beyond the past and the present and the future. It is always existent. These are the qualities on which you can meditate upon. As you meditate, it's not just a form on which you meditate. You have to meditate on that form as associated with qualities. Like if you're meditating on Shri Ram Krishna, you must meditate on Shri Ram Krishna as ever blissful, beyond time and beyond space. It's infinite. It is existence, consciousness, bliss. And that form of Ramakrishna as if smiling at you, drawing you. Yes, that's the way it has to be meditated. Drawing your mind over to him. So it's called a guna dhyan, meditation on qualities, meditation on form, and meditation on name, and meditation on qualities. These three things should synchronize always. So the first realization of yours is the first step, the biggest step in your life will be you will realize that supreme soul that is appearing as your individual soul. So it is the experience of your sakshi, your the inner, you can say, witness, or the inner controller, antaryami. And then the next stage of this realization, if you push it a little further, you will see that this realization has led you to the highest realization. There is one supreme self who is the Lord of the past and the present. He is existence, consciousness, bliss, luminous, and was there, will be there, is there, always present. That realization will make you experience everything as the supreme self. Just not just you. Oh, I have realized that supreme space, that Atman, that reality within. You will see that reality pervading everything. This is the highest stage.
Are we also going to be flat on the floor?
Oh,
That's what I was
where you will be flat on the floor. It depends on the intensity of the experience.
Oh, okay.
As you keep on proceeding towards this experience, first, as Sri Ramakrishna says, as you're going towards the ocean, what you will do is first, and now the Pacific Ocean is not far away from here. As you emerge out of this room and you're walking towards the ocean, first you will see the cool breeze. And then as you proceed down Sunset Boulevard, you'll hear the sound of the waves. And you'll know that cool breeze and the sound, you are approaching the ocean. And as you approach it, you'll see it. This is the ocean. And then you will go closer and then you will touch it. So there are different stages of that same realization which is unfolding within you. So as you proceed slowly, step by step, every day, every minute, every second is actually, we are proceeding towards that reality. And at times we get a kind of a hint, a very strong feeling. Yes, this is the reality. This is the reality. So as we keep on approaching this reality, gradually we become conditioned. So you won't get flat out on the. Maybe you'll, oh, there it is. You might yell in joy.
I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, you're looking forward
What
to it.
if
Of
you
course,
jump in the
everyone is
ocean?
looking.
What if you just jump in the ocean?
Yeah, though, yeah, if you jump from here to there, but even that process will take. Yeah, you need to spring and then you want to jump and something like that. So
To become one with it.
yeah, so you become one with it. So till that time, we are all approaching, and that approach um, fortifies us, conditions us. We know what's coming.
Mm. Okay.
Like now, it's lunchtime. We know that there's a kind of a signal going on within us. The body is primed for it, the kind of circadian rhythm. We don't need to, it's lunchtime. No, we know it's going to be lunchtime. My body is getting ready for it. Similarly, in these higher meditations, your body and mind gets primed, is getting ready,
Mm.
and then it happens. It's always, you don't have to worry about. But falling down flat, it's like, see, even when you sleep, you're flat. You don't realize you're flat. You go to sleep, you lie down on your back or on your side, and then There's no consciousness that of you lying down flat or on the side. Your consciousness has gone somewhere else. So similarly, when that realization comes, Sri Ramakrishna always had his disciples or his nephew Hriday always kind of supporting. When he used to go in that state of samadhi, bhava samadhi, there was someone always holding him. So you don't have to worry about somebody will come and hold you. Oh, that's so sweet. But when you reach that place, then nothing else matters. You have attained the infinite. Like today we are reading, pay heed no more how body lives and goes. Its task is done, let karma float it down. That's what it is. Swami Vivekananda's hymn, the song of the sannyasi. So this is the idea. Well, we have a few minutes. Then there was one yogi who was in samadhi for a very long time, and somehow the people were trying to revive that, and that person died, or the person gave up his body. And somebody was coming and telling Sri Ramakrishna about this, that sadhu of Bhu Kailash. So Sri Ramakrishna kept quiet. Then he gives the example of, in Ayurveda, a type of medicine, they have some medicine called Makardwaj. You have gold mixed with some other things, put in a kind of a bottle, small glass bottle, and the mouth is closed with the seal, and the clay put and then closed, and then it's put in fire. And that fire kind of melts, that fuses all those different elements within that bottle. Now, to extract that medicine, that doctor will need to break that bottle. So Sri Ramakrishna says, once your inner stuff has become ready, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all how the body is sitting down or flat or reclining or standing or anything. Your inner stuff has become prepared, ready. So that is what. The next two verses we can leave it for next Wednesday. The gist is, why does that one supreme self, the Paramatman, appear to be diverse?
Diverse?
Diverse, or how does the one becomes the many? How does the one reality appears as many? So an illustration is given in the next, the 14th verse. And it also makes a distinction between those who see the many, run after the many, and those who see the one, the person of knowledge, the Jnani, he will see the one. So the 15th verse, the last verse there, speaks about that person who sees the oneness. And then this section is concluded. Then we proceed to the next section, the Kathopanishad. It becomes 2, 2, and 1. So we are on the 2, 1, 14, and 15, which we'll take up next Wednesday. And we have the Bhagavad Gita tomorrow at 7:30. Tonight we have the Gospel, 7:30, by Swami Sarvadevananda.
I listened to that online.
Oh, yeah.
Evening class.
Mm.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
Swami Sir can come to this class and also to his afternoon class, Tuesday.
Good. So we stop here for now. Om Shanti. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat. Shri Ram Krishna Arpanamastu.
Thank you very much, Swamiji.
You're welcome.
You are expanding my mind.
Ah.